I've traditionally been a slow starter with my picks, and that certainly carries through in week one. You guys see me almost every year. And to be fair, there's a lot of things you could say, like week one's really hard to predict. You just really don't know. That's true. Then you could also say, well, I actually will pick like every game, right? Maybe. I could also say, like, hey, I don't invest as much time thinking about this, studying this, and researching this as I once did. That is also definitely true. But excuses all fucking day. But usually I'm more inclined to show some type of improvement in week two, do a little bit better in week two. And yeah, that didn't happen this time. Week two was bad, and I could almost argue worse. I was a little better against the spread. Like week one, I was 6-10. Week two, I was 7-9. I was only 7-9 picking the winners straight up versus 9-7 in week one. So I'm already digging myself a bit of a hole. This is kind of embarrassing. So let's fucking get to it. And let's hope that week three will be better. Now, when it comes to the week three slate of games on Thursday night, I certainly thought the 49ers would win, but I took the Giants plus the 10.5 because I thought, well, maybe they'll play just ugly enough of a game. There's only been a couple of days of rest in preparation for each of these teams. Maybe Deebo Samuel will get lost on the way to Santa Clara. Maybe George Kittle will be sitting there and try to cut a crappy audition promo for WWE in the future. Like any number of things. Like maybe the Giants will bumblefuck into something even with Saquon Barkley being out, even with Andrew Thomas being out. And I'm like, well, maybe they'll cover the spread. Of course they fucking didn't. It's like they do the best they can considering the circumstances, but the Giants aren't a very good football team right now. And the 49ers are one of the elite teams. Like, we're going to be talking about the 49ers and probably like the Cowboys and then maybe the Eagles as like the creme de la creme of the NFC. So, not surprised the 49ers won. The Giants they were in a spot they should have been able to cover the spread though. So, kind of already split the difference there. So, it is what it is. But let's talk about some of the key, like marquee games this week three. I'm not going to talk about every one, but you can look at my picks in the description box below. I'm going to start off with Atlanta traveling to Detroit to take on the Lions. Like, this is a sneaky good game, right? You've got Desmond Ridder. I don't know if that makes it a sneaky good game, but you've got an Atlanta team with weapons on offense, Bijan Robinson and Drake London and Kyle Pitts, and they're sitting at 2-0. Meanwhile, the Detroit Lions come into this one 1-1. They lost in overtime last week to the Seattle Seahawks after their opening week win on the road against the Chiefs. This is a big spot. It's a big matchup, right? Because if Atlanta can go into Detroit against a legit team and win, now you're talking about the Falcons are 3-0. Hard to knock them at that point, right? A couple of wins over the NFC North. Like, you might have to start taking the Falcons at least a little bit serious. Meanwhile, for the Lions, you win this one, you get that taste out of your mouth from the overtime loss to the Seahawks. You're sitting at 2-1. Like, you're in a good spot 3 weeks into the year, and you're going to be no worse than a tie for first with Green Bay, which makes that next Thursday game even bigger potentially if both teams win on Sunday. I'll take the Lions minus the 3. I think the Lions are just the better team. I'm not a believer in the Falcons right now. When you look at who the Falcons beat, like the Packers are okay, but they're not great. They beat Carolina in week 1. Bryce Young's first start. Carolina stinks, right? So, like, at least I can point to, hey, the Lions at least lost in overtime to what you presume to be a solid team in the Seahawks and beat an elite team in the Chiefs on the road in week 1. So, yeah, give me the better team. Give me the Lions minus the 3. You've got a really pivotal matchup of 0-2 teams between the Chargers and the Vikings. You know, both teams in a spot that they don't want to be. Lose and you go 0-3. For the Chargers, you know, if this team loses this game, that seat is going to get really, really hot for Brandon Staley. It might, in fact, engulf him. Because this is a team that has talent. This is a team that has expectations. This is a team that has a guy that you could consider as an elite quarterback in Justin Herbert. They can't be in this 0-2 spot, and yet here's where they find themselves. Meanwhile, for the Vikings, 13-4 was a bit of an aberration last year, but it is what it is. But when you look at them, their first 2 weeks, they've lost to a Tampa team who now is 2-0, right? But you could argue, well, if they beat a bad Minnesota team and a bad Chicago team, does that count? Fair question. But they did win. The Vikings then sit there. You're talking about losing to Philadelphia in week 2, the defending NFC champions. So the Vikings being 0-2 doesn't look so bad right now. But in this matchup, this could be a sneaky, really good game because both of these teams are going to have a real urgency. They really need this win. And I will go for some reason with the Chargers plus the 1. It could be a shootout between Herbert and Cousins. I'll pick what I think is the better roster, the better talent, the better team. Although I think Minnesota probably has a better coach in Kevin O'Connell. Give me the Chargers plus the 1. Moving to the late Sunday afternoon games. God, make sure you check out, if you haven't already, my preview of Bears-Chiefs for Week 3. Because I recapped everything that is the shit show of that organization just over the past 5-6 days. What an abortion. And now Bears fans, after the 0-2 start that's already deflating, all of the drama, your reward is a trip to Kansas City, having to wait until late Sunday afternoon for this one to take on the defending Super Bowl champions. You got to face down Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, and Travis Kelce. Yippee! I'm frankly surprised the Chiefs are only 12.5-point favorites. I'm surprised even more money didn't move on the Chiefs here. Because the Bears are not only bad, but they're missing people. They've got, Braxton Jones now is also out. It looks like Eddie Jackson is doubtful. You already have Tevin Jacobs off that offensive line. So that offensive line stinks. Justin Fields playing like he stinks because he does stink at this point. That defense stinks. And Matt Eberflus is calling the plays. Okay, so they'll blitz more and they'll get shredded even more in coverage, just like they did week 2 against Tampa. Yeah, you're not going against Baker Mayfield this time. It's Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, unless Justin Fields runs absolutely dog shit crazy on Sunday for 150 yards, a couple of touches, there's no way the Bears can keep this close. Unless Mahomes has a brutal game, just makes some really bad throws and decisions. So I'll take the Chiefs all day minus the 12.5. And frankly, I look at the circumstances of the situation, I'm surprised they're not 14 or 15-point favorites. Shifting over to the Monday night slate of games, you got both of them. And why do we have to do a doubleheader? Why do we have to do a doubleheader here? Why? Who asked for this? Who fucking wants this? Who needs this? At least if you're going to do a doubleheader, at least split the games out a little bit more. It's oversaturation and you're undercutting yourself and you're going to piss off networks. You're going to piss off the cable channels, the cable companies, because you're undercutting yourself with your own fucking product. It's not very smart business to me. It's different when you talk about Sunday games because they're shown regionally, right? But you're showing both of these bitches nationally. Why not have one of these games start at 7 and the other game start at 10, which is a nightmare for somebody like me on the East Coast, but at least it makes sense. You're allowing each game to run uncovered, or start one at 6 and start one at 9:30. Do something like that. I don't know what the fuck this is. But you got the Eagles at 2-0 traveling to Tampa to take on the 2-0 Buccaneers. A game of some early intrigue here. Because if the Buccaneers find a way to win, they're sitting there at 3-0, and they're in a pretty powerful position early on in the NFC South. It's easy to dismiss the Bucs at this point because the Eagles are the defending conference champions, but it's not like they've looked great at any point this year. They certainly got it going on the ground with DeAndre Swift in week 2 in that Thursday night game against the Vikings, but they almost let the Vikings come back into that one. Something's a little off with this Eagles team right now. So they should not take it for granted that this is just going to be an automatic roll. That said, I am taking the Eagles minus 4.5. And then you got another big matchup there, especially for Cincinnati. They've got the Rams coming in, and the Bengals sitting there at 0-2. And if they go 0-3 after giving Burrow that massive contract, it's going to get hot there really quickly. And nobody's getting fired or anything, but it could start to unravel a little bit. Meanwhile, for the Rams coming off of that loss, but they made sure they covered against the 49ers, For them to go on the road and beat Cincinnati here would be a really big win. It'd be a nice way to recover from the loss to San Fran. You'd be sitting at 2-1. Nice road victory there. I'm still going to take the Bengals minus the 2.5. As always, you're welcome to go against me with your picks, and I'm sure you'll fucking do better than I did, just like you probably all did the first 2 weeks.